Welcome to this episode of the Million Dollar Mastermind. I'm Larry Weidel, and let's get started. All right, I'm back with Larry Stevens, and we're going to continue on with Larry talking about coming out of, he's 23, he's coming out of the Vietnam War and moving in to a totally different environment in Chicago in financial services and not doing the same thing, thriving, moving up through the ranks, making the most of the opportunity and making an impact. So help me welcome back Larry Stevens. Larry, welcome.
Glad to do it. Now, are you being the cousin today, or am I being the
I,
cousin today?
I think I'm the cousin. You're the uncle.
Okay, you're the cousin, so I'll be the Larry.
Yeah, you're
It's
the Larry.
confusing sometimes when we both have the same first name.
Yeah.
Uh, Coming back from the military after I had a little period of depression and just sort of adjusting to the fact that I'd taken life and that was in the past and I had to move on. One of the strange things about the military experience, at least that I had out of Vietnam, was that real life that most people here think is so difficult is not really that difficult. The guys that I were working with, they came to work at 8 o'clock, which means they probably got up at 6:30. Well, I was used to coming awake before the sun came up so I could be ready for something that happened. So it was nothing for me to be in the office an hour before the other people, getting a jump on the day and getting a jump on the people that weren't really my competitors, but they were in the sense of I wanted to achieve more, have more territory, more responsibility, etc. So I guess just wrapping up the transition, or because sometimes it's just difficult to talk about. I hope you can appreciate that. The transition thought that I brought to the real world is that the people that I knew then and I know now, they make way too much of it. They make it too complicated. Life is not that complicated. When I was listening to you in our last conversation, you talked about two of the things that I brought with me from the military. I brought with me from my home life before that, being in a poor environment, that anybody that wants to succeed, whether it's leadership, individual commission, sales, building a team, you mentioned this before in our last call, you have to value hard work. If you don't work hard, it will not happen. As our mutual friend Art says, you just got to do it. You have to value hard work. And when I came into civilian life, relative to my life being on the line every day, it just isn't that hard to value hard work, but a person has to control their own mind. They have to control their areas where they are not disciplined, and they have to subdue those things and embrace the principle of hard work. And the other thing that you mentioned on just briefly, which was always in the forefront of my mind when I was starting out and trying to figure out how I was going to move up from operations to sales to ownership of a firm, it was I had to have a plan. And I had a long-term plan. And that long-term plan hit me when I was about 30 years old. And that long-term plan was real simple. I decided that when I was 50, I wanted to be in a position where I could walk away from it if I wanted to and lay it down and do something different, or I could keep on keeping on. And my short-term goals were really finite. They were well defined. When I hit the office in the morning at 7 o'clock, I knew I was going to get my calls all organized. I know who I was going to have called by 10 o'clock. The mental break that I was going to take at 10 o'clock just to refresh myself, because nobody can work 8 hours at max capacity without some mental breaks. And then I knew who I was going to call from 10:15, 10:30 to noon. And then I broke up the afternoon in the same way. I had a short-term plan. It was hourly and daily. And I had a long-term plan that involved me and my family. And then the other things in life that I valued, like spirituality and church and contributing to the greater overall good. I don't know if that's really what you were looking for, but that's immediately what I fell into in my working life.
And the thing is, one way of looking at that is you not only had your long-term plan was locked in on something that excited you, and that's what people have got to find. If you turn your on switch fully on, to activate your internal combustion, internal motivation energy, engine, which is inside you, you're never more empowered and you never have more energy when you're going for something you want, because you are a unique individual put on this earth to do certain things and equipped with certain talents. And inside you, it's just like a gerbil knows how to be a gerbil. A lion knows how to be a lion, and because it's in them. Elephants, you don't have to tell them now, don't get too tall, don't get a long neck like the giraffe. We don't have to put you through a training course to keep your neck from getting too long. What you want to do is grow that nose out there. They don't have that's just bred in them. And people need to realize there is a plan for all of us. And this is, you can fight it, but as my good friend Chess Britt says, there is a God out there, and it's not it's not you. And but there is a God out there that is running things, that organize things, and you're here for a purpose. And you have value, and you have talents. And the deal is, whatever you get most excited about that's productive, and I'm not talking about, getting drunk or things like that, but anything, or just, eating ice cream and pizza. Beyond that, I'm talking about long-term productive value. You're excited about, you're motivated about, you dream about. These type things come from in you, and you've got to turn all of that on. You've got to get a goal that somehow makes sense to you. Your conscious mind says yes, and what you did when you said it's got to be something great and something worth making the extra effort for. And what you did was lock in. Somehow that activated your neurons and your cellular structure to where, man, being able to be financially independent, to do what I want, to walk away if I want to at age 50 was worth, getting up a little extra. And it gave you a purpose and a drive. And then you got to have, and that's the goal of greatness, something that really, it fits you. And it's big. But you got to get there. You got to climb that mountain. And so what are we going to do today? And so you took the guesswork. What you got to do is take the guesswork out of what's your life going to amount to, by setting the direction. All these people say, what's life about? Well, what's your life? It's not life. What's your life about? It's supposed to be about. And so you lock in on that, and then you got to make steps. You got to get going. If you want to climb Mount Everest, there's a whole lot that goes into it, and all you can do is everything you get that you can cram into today. And the more things you can cram into each day, the quicker you're going to get to the top of Everest. So you took charge, and this is, again, controlling the environment, because you had a team. You went from a team, when you hit the ground within the first week, you were responsible for 30 plus people in Vietnam. But when you went into the bond market, you had an organization of one. But it was important still that you get that organization of one organized correctly. And so you got the goal, you took charge of the activity, and it wasn't, we're going to try and do 800 calls today. You took a reasonable type approach and lined yourself up and you put your butt to work. That's what a lot of people listening to this thing need to do. You got to get something that can turn your butt on, and then you got to get your butt to work. I mean, that's what we all have to do. And I don't care if you're 5 years, you're 5, you got things to do at 5, you got things to do at 15, at 25, 35, and you got things to do at 75 too. And so as long as you're here, there's things you've got to do, things you can accomplish. And so you got to lock in on them and get going. And so, Larry, that's what I heard from you right there. You've put it into a nutshell, and this is how you launched yourself out, and you set yourself up for a cascade of wonderful things to happen to you, really, because you organize yourself mentally for your mentally and activity wise for success right from the beginning. And that's where we all have to start. So many people listening to this call, that's where you got to start. And so how would you, I'm going to wrap up this segment on this by getting your reaction to that. And then we're going to get into how that expanded and how that dominoed for you on another episode. But how would, because I'm going to try and keep these into bite-sized chunks. So when I'm feeding back to you my reaction to what you just said there, because I just feel like it needs to be unpacked, and people need to realize there's not a whole lot more you need to hear about than that. What's your reaction to hear me trampling back over your words and ideas and saying them in another way?
Oh, I agree with everything you said. My mind was going back. By the way, I noticed you didn't mention jackasses when you were going over all the answers. And in every organization, you're going to have one of those. If you don't believe that, you haven't really tried leadership yet. But my mind, in affirming what you were saying, went back to that time about maybe 15 years ago when I first met you, and I met Art, and I met Tom Mullins, Dr. Mullins, who is founded one of America's top 10 largest churches. And our friend John Maxwell, who's given the same speech 100,000 times, but always made it interesting every individual time, has had phenomenal success, both financially and with supporting his ministry. Each and every one of those guys, you and me and those guys, they had an enthusiasm about what they were doing. I was in the bond business. You and Art were doing the, sell term and invest the rest thing. And Tom was doing ministry, and John was doing leadership. But every one of us individually, I sensed, we felt a calling to what we were doing, and we were really enthusiastic about it. And if you're enthusiastic about what you're doing and you mix in hard work, it can be fun. When we were hanging out together playing golf, every guy in the group had a real fun side. But every guy in the group, Art, you, Tom, John, myself, every guy was serious-minded about what they were going to do to keep pressing ahead for success when that fun part of our lives ended and we headed on to the next thing.
Yeah, and you were never more serious than when you were in the process of beating my brains out on the golf course.
No. You and I were always partners.
Yeah, that's true.
You and I, we were always partners.
Yeah.
Because Tom, he always wanted to beat me to death, and Art always wanted to beat me to death. So we always wanted to beat them to death.
Yeah. And when I would have the sense of where that shows up really, Larry, even in golf, is like, you might not feel confident about your swing, your game. You might be having a bad day, but when it comes your time to march up to the tee box and it's a long drive, and you got these animals standing around watching you, there's no sympathy. If you got to get up there and you got to get that ball down the fairway, and that's not the time for weakness when you're marching up to the tee box and you're surrounded by these high-strung competitors. And
golf is a good metaphor for living a successful life. If you got a thin skin and you can't compete, you're not likely to do real well.
yeah, and you're not likely to get any sympathy either.
Well, not from that group.
Yeah, you get the feedback real quick. Well, Larry,
thanks for sharing today.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fantastic. I mean, it's just incredibly powerful and condensed truth that people can dig into, start implementing the changes that jump into their mind, that they start to realize, I need to do this, I need to do that, and start immediately to see a turnaround towards the positive. So thanks so much, Larry.
Oh, glad to do it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of $1 Million Mastermind with me, Larry Weidel. If I've helped you in any way, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. For more information like this, listen to our other $1 Million Mastermind episodes, and check out my Weidel Academy YouTube channel and visit us on WeidelOnWinning.com. I'm the $1 Million Mastermind, and until next time, go, go, go.